Sometimes I really be wishing Beyonce would come online and let y'all have it. Like, she's so drama free and so quiet.
There's something about power that changes the way people remember their own story. And when you reach a level where your name isn't just a name anymore, but a brand, a legacy, a symbol, you don't just control your future, you start rewriting your past. That's exactly why what Jay-Z said recently hit people so differently. Not because it was shocking, but because it sounded too clean, too polished, too convenient. In that GQ interview, he sat there, calm and composed, and made a statement that immediately lit a fire across the internet, that he never took advantage of anyone on his way to becoming a billionaire.
Opinions, that it matters a lot to me, of course, Jay, music and business.
And the moment those words left his mouth, you could almost feel the collective pause. Because for some people, that sounded inspiring. But for a lot of others, that sounded like revisionist history. And here's where things start to get messy, because the moment that statement started circulating, names began resurfacing. Old tensions. Old interviews. Old receipts. And two names in particular started getting louder than the rest, Lil Wayne and Nicki Minaj. Now this isn't just random gossip. This is years of tension, layered with business decisions, personal egos, and moments that, at the time, might have seemed small, but now look very different when you put them all together. Let's start with Lil Wayne. Because his story with Jay-Z isn't just drama, it's a slow burn. The kind that doesn't explode overnight, but simmers quietly until suddenly, everything makes sense. Back in the early 2000s, Wayne wasn't just rising, he was transforming. He went from being seen as just another member of Cash Money to someone who was redefining what a rapper could be. And then Jay-Z stepped away from the game. A so-called retirement. And in that moment, Wayne did something bold. He didn't just step into the spotlight, he claimed it. He said he was the best rapper alive. Now, that alone wasn't the issue. Hip-hop thrives on confidence. But what made this different was timing. Because not long after, there was a real possibility that Wayne could have signed with Jay-Z. That's where things get interesting. Jay reportedly offered him $175,000 to join his camp. And on paper, maybe that sounds like an opportunity. But when Universal came in with a multi-million-dollar deal, the choice was obvious. And Wayne chose the bigger move. At that point, nothing was broken yet. No real beef. Just two powerful artists moving in different directions. But then, Jay-Z came back. And that's when the tone shifted. His comeback wasn't quiet. It wasn't subtle. It was loud, confident, and carried this underlying message: the throne was still his. But Wayne wasn't having that. Not anymore. When Jay dropped "Show Me What You Got," Wayne didn't just listen, he responded. And not with an interview. Not with a tweet. But with a remix that shook everything. It wasn't just good. It was too good. So good that years later, even Jay himself admitted it made him question his position. Think about that for a second. A legend, questioning himself because of someone else's hunger. That's not just competition, that's pressure. And pressure changes people. From there, things got sharper. Wayne didn't hold back. He openly said he was better than Jay-Z. He questioned Jay's narrative about saving hip-hop. He made it clear, this wasn't Jay's house anymore. Now imagine being Jay-Z in that moment. You return from retirement expecting to reclaim your throne, and instead, you're facing someone who doesn't just challenge you, but refuses to acknowledge your authority. That tension? It didn't disappear. It just evolved. They collaborated. They smiled for cameras. They even made it look like respect was mutual. Songs like "Mr. Carter" felt like a passing of the torch. Like a symbolic moment where the old king acknowledges the new one. But here's the thing about symbolic gestures, they don't always reflect reality. Because behind the scenes, things were still shifting. Comments were made. Subtle disses were exchanged. And then, it got personal. When Wayne brought Beyonce into the conversation, everything escalated. That wasn't just rap anymore, that was territory.
Beyonce, she ain't shit no more. Jay-Z, I have nothing to do with it.
And once you cross into that space, there's no clean way back. Years passed. The intensity cooled. Or at least, it looked like it did. Until it didn't. Fast forward to a completely different chapter: streaming, business deals, corporate moves. Wayne signs with Jay-Z's platform. At face value, it looks like alignment. Like everything that happened before is finally behind them. But then comes the Super Bowl situation. New Orleans. Wayne's city. His home.
I must say thank you to every voice, every opinion, all the care, all the love.
The perfect stage. And behind the scenes, he's being told, subtly, strategically, to position himself. Be visible. Stay active. Build momentum. And he does. He shows up. He plays the game. Because he believes something is coming. But then the announcement drops. And it's not him. It's Kendrick Lamar. Now let's be clear, Kendrick is a powerhouse. No one's questioning his talent. But this wasn't about talent. This was about expectation. Wayne felt led on. And when he later revealed that even someone from the NFL admitted they weren't the ones making the decision, it pointed the spotlight somewhere else. Back to Jay-Z. And suddenly, that old narrative starts resurfacing again. Not loudly, but persistently. Because now it's not just about competition. It's about control. And that brings us to Nicki Minaj. If Wayne's story is a slow burn, Nicki's is an active explosion. Because unlike Wayne, she's not reflecting on the past, she's actively calling things out in real time. Her connection to Jay-Z goes beyond music. It's business. Ownership. Equity. When Tidal launched, it was marketed as something revolutionary. Artist-owned. Artist-controlled. A shift in power. Nicki was one of the faces of that movement. She had equity. A stake in something bigger. But then, years later, Jay sells Tidal to Jack Dorsey for hundreds of millions. And that's when Nicki starts asking questions. Because the numbers don't add up. She claims she was offered around $1 million for her share. But based on the sale? That number should have been significantly higher. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because instead of clarity, there's silence. No detailed explanation. No breakdown. Just, nothing. So Nicki does what Nicki does best, she speaks. Publicly. Directly. Unfiltered. And it doesn't stop there. She starts connecting dots. Old situations. Old disputes. Moments that didn't make sense at the time but now feel intentional. She talks about beats. About creative control. About being denied, then watching similar ideas surface elsewhere. She brings up situations involving The Weeknd, and even references tension involving Nas, which adds another layer, considering Jay-Z's history there. And then, she goes further. She suggests that the people around Jay-Z, specifically Desiree Perez, have played roles in shaping narratives about her. In influencing media coverage. Even in situations that go beyond industry politics. Now whether every claim is true, that's not the point here. The point is the pattern she's describing. Because when multiple artists, across different timelines, start telling stories that feel similar, people start paying attention. And suddenly, Jay-Z's original statement doesn't just sound bold, it sounds disconnected. Because taking advantage doesn't always look like something obvious. It doesn't always look like force or fraud. Sometimes it looks like timing. Like knowing when someone is vulnerable. Like structuring deals that benefit you more than the other person. Like making moves that, technically, are legal, but ethically questionable. And that's the conversation people are having now. Not just about Jay-Z, but about power itself. Because at that level, accountability becomes complicated. Who checks someone who's built an empire? Who challenges someone who controls rooms most people can't even enter? And maybe that's why the reaction has been so intense. Because it's not just about whether Jay-Z believes what he said. It's about whether he knows how it sounds to everyone else. Because to some, it feels like confidence. To others, it feels like someone daring people to question him. And the truth? It probably depends on where you're standing. If you're looking up, it might look like success. But if you've stood next to him, or behind him, or felt overlooked by him, it might look very different. And that's why this conversation isn't going away anytime soon. Because this isn't just about one interview. It's about years of moments that people are finally putting together. And now the real question isn't just whether Jay-Z took advantage of anyone. It's whether he genuinely believes he didn't. Or if, at this level, the line between truth and narrative has completely disappeared. So what do you think? Is this just the cost of doing business at the highest level? Or is this a case of power rewriting history in real time? Because if there's one thing that's clear, it's that this story isn't finished. Not even close.